You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment.' But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, 'You fool,' will be liable to the hell of fire. So, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny."
It's good to be here. Bring you greetings from Church Project in Southern California. In some ways it feels a little bit like home. We also are in a church a building that we don't get through the week. We go in Sunday by Sunday. So have some of the challenges that you have as a church here. We've had a recent pastoral change, which again can bring challenges and some things there. So we understand a little of some of the challenges and some of the opportunities you have as a church moving forward, but grateful to be here this morning. I should really have checked my calendar before coming and realizing that this was Mother's Day Sunday, because in America on Mother's Day that's probably the largest eating out meal day of the year, and if I go beyond like 20 minutes, people would literally just walk out because they have to get to the restaurants. And feel free to walk away. It won't be the first time. It won't be the last, I'm sure. But yeah, it's good to be with you this morning. Dan, I'm thankful for your sensitivity in talking about Mother's Day. America celebrates a lot of days. And, for every day that's a celebration for many, it's a hardship for others. And, I know from speaking to some, it's a day that some will avoid coming to church because they just feel, what do I do when everyone else is celebrating Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, other days? It can be a hard place. And it's sad that oftentimes these people are overlooked in our services on those given days. So thanks, Dan, for your sensitivity to people that don't find Mother's Day having its own kind of individual set of challenges. Let me just pull this up here. I should put this on. Can you grab your iPad? Yep. This is just like church back in America. Well, excuse me again. So, several weeks ago, I was with a group of pastors, and we were having dinner one night, and we went to this restaurant, and we arrived at the restaurant, and the table wasn't the table that we had expected or asked for. We'd asked for a round table, there was 6 or 7 of us, so that we could talk, and it wasn't a round table. And the server who we had he had a trainee with him. So it was kind of the trainee was early in their training career, let's say. And we were in this restaurant, probably for 4 hours by the time we were able to complete our meal. And at the end of the meal, the pastor who kind of set this dinner up asked to see the manager. And the manager came up to the table, and I got to tell you, he was in fear and trepidation. I could see he literally was shaking. And Jason said to him, "I just want to tell you what a great job your staff and your restaurant have done for us tonight. This meal has been absolutely fantastic." And you just saw the weight released from this guy's shoulders. And he was almost in tears as he's listening to this. And he said, "Look, I have to tell you this. I can't believe how kind these words are, because at the moment everyone is so angry. Everyone is so angry. Now, I don't know what the UK has been like or what Scotland has been like, but I can tell you what Southern California is like. It is full of angry people. They're angry at California, they're angry at the governor, they're angry at education, they're angry at politics, they're angry at the economy, they're angry at their work situation. The last 2 or 3 years have made people very, very angry. And I'm not sure that everyone really knows what to do with it, and it comes out in all kinds of weird ways. We've experienced it in the life of our church. We've had people leave because of what we're doing with COVID. We've had other people, anyway, all over the map, all over the spectrum. But what a shame that in this man's business life, his experience at the moment is on two poles. Very rare kindness and very common anger. And that's his kind of reality. The customers who come in are generally angry, and rare glimpses of kindness within that. So what has become for us an angry world is a world that is so missing that touch of kindness. And this morning we're going to be continuing in what is your series on the fruit of the Spirit. And I know you've been in this for 2 or 3 weeks, and when you're coming in as a visiting preacher, it means that anything, I don't know what you've been talking about. I don't know what you've shared. So anything I don't tell you, you should have heard already. Anything new, you're welcome. But in Galatians, what we have is there's kind of this crisis going on in this church. Paul has a deep love for these people, but there's some things going on that really are disturbing him because they're disturbing the faith of the believers there. There's people who are coming in and they're kind of teaching this different message. And they're saying to these new Christians, these young Christians, that they actually need to go back and start doing some of the things that they used to do under the Jewish law, some of the religious rituals. By doing this, they're effectively telling these new believers that Jesus really wasn't enough to deal with their sins. God's blessings were limited purely to Jewish Christians. Clearly, that is something that concerns Paul. He sees that the believers are not staying true to the gospel message that he had preached. A message which said that you're not justified by these works of the law, but by faith and faith alone in Jesus. What's the result? Well, you have this new multi-ethnic family through the gospel of Jesus, made up of all those who put their faith in Jesus. Multi-ethnic, all people, all nations, all ethnicities. A family that love God, love others, by the power of His Spirit. A Spirit that is living and active in all those who have trusted Him. And Paul pictures this life, and this is what you've been looking at these last few weeks, as a life of walking in the Spirit. A life of walking in the Spirit. If you've got your Bibles, your phones, your iPads, turn with me to Galatians 5. I've been paired successfully together for many years. Not 60 like my parents, but soon to be 30. Yeah. Okay, quiet. So, Galatians 5, and I want to read 16 through 26. You may be familiar with reading these each week, but we're going to read them again, whatever. And by the way, if I say any Americanisms at the end, your permission to slap me. I won't even realize that I'm doing it now, but Okay, verse 16, but I say, this is Paul, walk in the Spirit, and you'll not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit. The desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other, to keep you from doing the things you want to do. But if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident: sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. I warn you, as I warned you before, that those who do such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. Just look back at verse 17 and 18 again. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. For these are opposed to each other to keep you from doing the things you want to do. But if you're led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. So this morning, as Dan said, we're going to be continuing looking at the fruit of the Spirit. We're going to look at kindness. It's not the fruit of kindness, because all the things that Paul lists are actually one fruit. One fruit. We don't get to pick and choose which one of these fruits we like. We don't kind of on the day planner say, hey, tomorrow, Monday. Don't have much joy on a Monday. Monday's a day for patience. Maybe Tuesday we'll try some joy, and maybe Wednesday we'll go with some kindness. Kind of an all or nothing. It's all in there. Fruit of the Spirit. Our lives would have all this fruit being produced by the empowerment of the Holy Spirit working within us. And the list really shouldn't surprise us, because actually as we look at the fruit, that's actually a picture of the very heart of God. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. The ultimate example of all those is Jesus. He's the ultimate example of that fruit, and that is the fruit that should be produced in us by the power of the Spirit. But in thinking of verse 17 and 18, a little bit further back, and the desires of the flesh, and this kind of battle that is going on between the flesh and the Spirit, I want to look at one of these things, kindness, but I want to compare it to the spirit, the desire of the flesh in anger. Something I think that we all struggle with, and see how anger actually inhibits or obstructs us from being kind, being people characterized by kindness. So to do that, I want to take you back to a hillside just outside a small fishing town on the north shore of the Sea of Galilee, way up kind of in the northeastern area of Israel. Jesus has just been doing some of his early ministry. He's been teaching, he's been healing people. There's people who are beginning to follow him, wondering what he's about, who this guy is. He's called some of his disciples to follow him. They have responded, many not really knowing what's coming, but anyway, they choose to follow him, and off they go. And Jesus climbs up on this hill outside this town and delivers what's generally considered to be his best-known sermon. He's there with his disciples, those who have been called and they've made this decision to follow him. But there's also other people there too in this crowd. There's people from the surrounding areas who have followed Jesus. Some of those maybe just curious. Who is this guy? I've heard some things about him. Apparently he's doing some miracles. People are being healed. We really need to get close and see what this guy's like, hear what he's saying. But there's also religious leaders, the scribes and the Pharisees. They're there too, perhaps for different reasons, maybe concerned about the following that he's gathering, because these guys generally are threatened by the influence that other people have in gaining any power and authority, taking any power and authority from them. In their minds, they're the good guys. In their minds, they are the righteous. They're the ones who keep all the commandments, look down on everyone else. So when Jesus talks, you can see the Pharisees and the scribes, at least initially, nodding their heads in this sermon. Afterwards, you can go back to it. We'll read a little bit in a minute in Matthew chapter 5. But Matthew says these words, just kind of at the front end of this sermon. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. So up until this point, I could see the scribes and the Pharisees kind of nodding their heads. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? What did Jesus just say? Unless righteousness exceeds ours, you can't see the kingdom of heaven. A righteousness that exceeds ours, that just can't be right. No one knows the law better than us. No one keeps the law more than us. No one. And I can picture the faces in the crowd as they look at Jesus, and then they kind of look across at the Pharisees with this look of complete bewilderment, because they have been told that these guys are the righteous ones, they're the holy ones, the ones who you look up to. And in their heads they're saying, did Jesus just say that unless we have more righteousness than these guys, we'll never enter the kingdom of heaven? A righteousness that exceeds theirs? How's that even possible? These guys are professionally good. They don't just follow the rule book to the letter. They literally wrote the rule book. Or at least the ones that came before them wrote the rule book. These guys compete against each other in keeping the rules. They teach the law, interpret the law, elaborate on the law. They're totally committed to fulfilling the demands of the law. They go to church every Sunday. They don't miss a small group. There's a prayer meeting. They're there. A worship service, they're there. They know the words to all hymns by heart. And they've memorized huge chunks of the Bible. If Jesus is saying their righteousness isn't enough for them to enter the kingdom of God, what hope is there for us? What does that kind of righteousness even look like? Well, if you've got your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter 5. But I need to warn you, if these words were written today, they probably come with a trigger warning, because the content's disturbing. It's disturbing then, it's disturbing now. And we're going to see that Jesus, he takes what are commonly held as misunderstandings, he turns them on their head. Let's read it together. And as we do read these verses, we're going to see that anger, first of all, it distorts our view of ourselves. It distorts our view of ourselves. Second thing we're going to see is that anger actually puts distance between ourselves and God. It creates this gap. And the third thing is that anger destroys our relationship with others. And as a result of these things, we're going to see that in the context of the fruit of the Spirit, anger restricts our ability to be kind. It's impossible for anger and kindness to be present in the same attitude or in the same action. So let me read these verses to you. Jesus on the mountain. You've heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. Pharisees and scribes nodding their heads, so far so good. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. Whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. Excuse me. So if you're offering your gift to the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court. Lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you pay the last penny. Picture the Pharisees with that opening line. You've heard it said, you shall not murder. Whoever murders will be liable to judgment. You can see them saying, amen, Jesus. That's right. That's what we've been taught by the rabbis that came before us. That's what we teach too. Murder's wrong. It's evil. We don't murder. Take a life. Not us. We obey the law of God. No liability here. So we're good. In fact, we're better than good. We're righteous. But what did Jesus mean when he said, you've heard that it was said to those of old? Jesus is referring to the teachings of the rabbis through the ages. Things that the religious leaders and scribes had taught and passed down from generation to generation. Known as the oral law. Memorized, passed along. Not God's word. Not the law of Moses. This was stuff that was supplemental to the law of Moses. Stuff that they had written, collections of sayings. Arguments touching on every aspect of life. 613 rules, 248 commands of things to do, 365 prohibitions of things not to do, over 1,500 revisions and amendments. It's a lot of things to learn and memorize. And that's what they did. They took great pride in obeying them all. That's how they measured their righteousness, how good they were, strictly following their own set of rules. You know, it's easy to snigger and point the finger at the Pharisees, but we do this too. I grew up in a church tradition where certain activities on a Sunday were seen to be okay, others completely taboo. We had our own version of the oral law. Oral law today, for many, says that apart from church, Sundays can pretty much look like any other day of the week. Keeping the Sabbath, Well, that's a sermon for Martin to preach. But let's not pretend that we don't make up our own rules that suit us, and allow us to check our own set of boxes to convince us of our own righteousness, our own goodness. Because if we're honest, we all have a little Pharisee in us. So most of the crowd at the hillside wouldn't have been able to read the scriptures themselves. They were in a language that was foreign to them, in Aramaic, so they were only available in Hebrew. So they're dependent for these religious leaders to basically tell them and read them everything that they knew. They weren't able to understand it for themselves. And they respected the religious leaders, so they would listen, and they would believe, and they would act. But these scribes and Pharisees, they would twist the meaning of the law for their own purposes, often to ensure their continued power and influence. So again, you shall not murder, no problem. The scribes and Pharisees, punishable by death. So murder prohibited, murder is liable to judgment. Rabbinic tradition, law of Moses, perfect alignment, so far so good. But then this is where Jesus rocks their world and really rocks ours too. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. Whoever says you fool will be liable to the hell of fire. So Jesus stamps his authority. You've heard what the scribes and Pharisees tell you, but let me tell you how things really are. Effectively, Jesus is saying, you've heard things from the mouth of men, now you're hearing them from the mouth of God. And maybe some at that moment are smart enough to realize this is where this righteousness that Jesus was talking about, this righteousness that exceeds the Pharisees and the scribes, this is what Jesus is talking about. So Jesus takes the law and the consequences of that and act of murder and says, that doesn't go far enough. You've taken part of God's law, but there's more to it when you're to that teaching than what you think. God's law goes further. It goes to the heart. Jesus connects the act of murder with the attitude and emotion of anger. He says it's not what you do with your hands. It's about what's going on in your heart. This makes sense to us. Intentional killing of someone just doesn't happen. We understand that the outward action of murder is the result of some kind of unrestrained anger, when this rage within explodes in the most violent of ways. What doesn't make sense to us, what's harder to understand, is Jesus saying that a similar judgment awaits those who are angry as those who murder. Not a civilized nation in history that doesn't have a law against murder. But I've yet to find one that has a law criminalizing anger. Can you imagine how many of us would be arrested? You know how angry you can get. I know how angry I can get. That's why Jesus' words are hard to hear. From our human perspective, it's almost completely unrealistic in our understanding. Surely anger is different from murder. Surely it's kind of not quite as high up a scale of sin. There's not all anger is wrong. There's a righteous anger, an anger towards sin and those who commit it. Those are things that it's right to be mad about, situations where we can be angry and not sin. You know, one right now, the war and its impact on the people of Ukraine. That's one that's front and central. There's others. Injustice, oppression, abuse, many others too. Jesus isn't talking about that. He's talking about an anger motivated by a desire. He's not talking about an anger motivated by a desire to see God's goodness enacted in our world. He's talking about the anger that we're more familiar with. Rage, road rage, work rage, home rage, political rage. The type of anger that impedes our ability to be kind. An anger rooted in a distorted view of ourselves, a view that sees ourselves as better or above others. You cannot be kind if that is how you view the people around you. You cannot be kind if that is how you view the people around you. If you see yourself as better, if you see yourself as above those around you, you cannot be kind. When we're angry with people, we see them as something else than the person that God's created them to be. someone of value and worth. When we're angry, we depersonalize them and attack their identity. The ultimate expression of this is murder. God doesn't just want us to avoid murder. He wants us to deal with the root by removing anger from our relationships. In this passage in Matthew 5, he gives us two concrete examples of how that plays out. It plays out in even insulting those around us. We all do that. We may not actually verbalize those insults, but oftentimes they can be in our head. How we see others. We can call people, in the original languages, something like idiot or empty head. I just remember my time in Scotland, numpty. It's a numpty. You know, Jewish culture, name's importance, tied to identity. So an attack on the name was pretty serious. Second insult's even worse. A moron takes it up a level. Again, I think insults are so commonplace with us that I'm not sure we consider them offensive anymore. That those insults can creep into how we see the people around us, how we can depersonalize them, how we can see them differently, in a way where it is impossible for us to be kind people. Jesus said, if you put someone down with your words, you'll face God's judgment. That's a strong word from Jesus for us. We need to be careful with our words. So Jesus said, physical acts of murder, not the issue. Issue is anger in your heart. Not murdering someone doesn't make you righteous. If you hold a deep anger or hatred, you are not fulfilling the law's command in its fullness. And we say, oh, we'd never do that. Come on. Hold grudges, resentment, bitterness. That can't be the same as murder. Jesus said, look at your heart. Examine your heart. Who's the murderer? Anyone who's angry with his brother. In effect, Jesus is saying on the hillside, you're just like these murderers. You deserve the same kind of punishment. So anger distorts how we see others. If we see others with a heart of anger, it's impossible to be people of kindness and to demonstrate kindness towards others. But in these verses, we also see that anger puts distance between ourselves and God. And God says, hey, if you've got something going on with a brother, if they've got something against you, they're angry towards you, don't even think about giving your gift at the temple right now. You need to go and sort out your relationship with that person. Now we would say, whoa, wait a minute. What's more important than worshipping the Lord? We're here on a Sunday morning. What's more important than that? Read these verses. Jesus says, you know what's more important than that? Being in a right relationship with others. Make sure you do something about that before you think and play the game of coming thinking that you're in a right relationship with me. My father had a picture on his office wall throughout his whole career, as far as I know. And it was from Proverbs 21:3. It said this, God is more pleased when we are just and fair, kind, than when we give him gifts. God is more pleased when we are just and fair to others, relationally, than when we give him gifts. But what do we think? Well, if I'm okay, if I just do something to God, give something to God, I'll be okay. And Jesus said, you know what? No. Go and deal with your relationships horizontally before trying to think you can come and sort out your relationship vertically. Those are challenging words. Because I'm really not sure who's angry with me. And I'm not recommending that we go around everyone this morning saying, hey, excuse me, are you angry with me? Maybe some of you would feel comfortable doing that, but I'd probably do that or recommend it. But it does say that needs to be in our mind. And if we know of something, we should go and deal with that. Now, how does that person respond? I don't know. Maybe they won't respond well. That's not the point. Jesus said you have to do something about that. The onus is on you to go and extend that. And by reaching out to that relationally, what are you doing? You are being kind. You are exhibiting kindness. You are pursuing the restoration of a relationship. That is kindness. Jesus said, that's important. That's important. Don't play games with me. Make sure you are right with the people around you, walking in spirit with those around you, living with the fruit of the Spirit being demonstrated in your life, in this example, through kind acts of extending a hand of forgiveness and restoration. So, anger distorts our view of others. You can't be kind if you look at others that way. Anger puts distance between ourselves and God, a distance that can be restored if we are people of kindness. And anger destroys our relationship with others. The third example is someone's taking this person to court. And Jesus said again, hey, go and figure this out. Go and do something about this before it is too late. If you don't, your relationship is destroyed. You're going to end up in jail. And actually the picture there is really that if you end up in jail, you can't work to pay yourself out of jail. Once you're in, you're in. You're stuck. You're in jail, you're stuck. You cannot be kind. You can maybe be kind to your jail master, the person yourself. But in terms of broader kindness, that doesn't work. So anger gets in the way of kindness. You can say, well, okay, we're talking really here about anger. What does really this have to do with kindness? Well, as I said, I think that anger creates this disconnect. A disconnect with the people that we love the most. It creates a disconnect with our Father in heaven. There's a lot of angry people. There's a lot of angry people in the church. A lot of angry people who claim to be followers of Jesus. A lot of angry people who claim to be walking in the Spirit. And on a Sunday morning, we convince each other that that is us. But on a Monday morning, as you're driving to work, on a Monday afternoon, as you're engaging with people in your workplace, on a Tuesday night, as you're having an argument with your spouse or your kids, is your life marked by kindness in those moments? Because if there is anger present, kindness cannot be present also. Kindness cannot be present at the same time. Because this kindness, this kindliness, it's kind of defined as a quality that will put people at ease around you. Am I that type of person? Do I put people at ease around me? Not just the ones who are closest, but actually in a broader sense. When you walk into a room, are you known as a kind person? Is that kind of your testimony to your workmates? Oh yeah, they're really kind. They put me at ease. They put me at ease. They have an expectation that you'll be kind in that environment. It's something that they have just grown to expect because that is your character. You are kind. You are kind. The word kind is used, this word, many times in the context in the scriptures of God being good. God being good is God being kind. We have been the recipient, we are the recipients of God's goodness and His kindness towards us. Not necessarily God's moral goodness, but His kindness expressed in what? His mercy to us. Kindness expressed through mercy. Again, are we a merciful people to those around us? Are we a gracious people or are we ungrateful? Because ultimately, God gave us the greatest example of kindness in the giving of His Son. So this morning, we have to remember by these words, in verse 17 and 18, that really there is a spiritual battle taking place when we think of kindness. This battle taking place between this fruit of the Spirit and the desire of the flesh. Because the desire of the flesh, and what I've been talking about this morning, that's anger. That is anger. Rage. Things get in the way. And man, there's times when we get angry and it is a strong desire. It's a reaction. It can grip us. That's a spiritual battle. And Paul's saying that, look, whatever that is not walking in the Spirit. That is not walking in the Spirit. Mark Twain, got to throw in an American quotation, says, kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the people can see. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the people can see. That is a kindness that we can experience from God. That is a kindness that we can be used by God into the lives of people around us. But the danger in a passage like this, and the danger of talking about fruits of the Spirit, is we immediately focus on, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? We like things to do. And what Paul's saying is, well, no, your focus is on who you need to become. Or maybe, better still, your focus needs to be on the one who can help you to become this person. Because we come to a passage like this and we think, well, what do I need to do? Give me something to do, something tangible, something that I can walk out of here, and then I can say at the end of the day, wow, I was kind today. I was kind today. And there are kind things we can do. But this is about who we need to become and how we need the Spirit's help to reshape our hearts and our attitudes so that what we do is actually aligned with who we are. We're not just going through the motions because we've been told to do certain things. It actually is an outflow of who we are. Paul's talking about becoming the kind of person by the power of God working in you and through you. That's not automatic. I think it requires cultivation and it requires intentionality. You know, we talk about random acts of kindness. I don't know if that's a big thing here. There's a big kind of commercial campaign in the States for one of the auto manufacturers that use it. They've kind of hijacked it by saying random acts of, I can't even remember. It's not kindness. Happiness or something. So anyway, we all know the phrase, random acts of kindness. But they're only random to the recipient. They're only random to the recipient. They're very intentional to the giver. Because for you to be involved in a random act of kindness involves you to enact kindness. To choose to be kind in that moment. And that could be opening a door, picking something off the street, taking a meal to someone in your church that's hurting or needs whatever. That may seem random to them, but it's got to be intentional to you. We have to look and seek the Spirit's help to reshape our hearts to be kind. I don't think it comes naturally, it's hard. Anger comes pretty naturally. Kindness, not so much. So we have to seek the Lord's help in helping us change our hearts. And you know, you might be sitting here this morning thinking to yourself, well, you know, I don't really consider myself a follower of Jesus, and I don't even consider myself religious, but you know what? I do consider myself kind. Not an angry person. And I guess my questions for you would be, well, are you always kind? Are you never angry? Because Jesus makes clear, and the Bible makes clear, that just one situation where you're unkind, or one moment when you're angry, is something that completely separates your relationship from God. And there's not one thing, there's not a million things you can do to restore that separation. There's only one person who can do that. And he can do that because he is kind. because he has been kind, because he is kind, and he forever will be kind by what he has done for us through the cross. If you want to know more about that person is Jesus. Talk to me after, talk to some of the people you're more familiar with here at Kintore, or find another time that works for you. But we're really here, week by week, Sunday by Sunday, gathering to worship because of God's kindness to us. And God calls us to live that kindness out in our lives and through our lives to the people around you. And my prayer for this church would be that the people of Kintore would know these people that meet on a Sunday morning, for other things too, but they are kind. They are kind people. And then in your conversations with the community around about you, it wouldn't just stop there. But as you interact with all those around you in your communities and in your streets and in the stores and shops that you spend your time in, that your conversations can move to say why you are kind. And you can point to Jesus and say, I am kind because Jesus is at work within me, helping me be kind. That would be my prayer for you as a church was praying. Father, thank you for your word. Lord, your word is comforting at times. It's encouraging at times, and it's hard at times. Lord, you challenge us to live lives that in many ways are just difficult to do. You ask us to do things. You ask us to live lives. You challenge us to change our heart to be aligned to yours. And Lord, we're thankful for the transformation that you have done in our hearts. For those of us who have trusted you, their hearts have been changed. That we have new life. But yet, Lord, in that new life there is the wrestle of the old. Lord, we pray that, Lord, as we finish this morning, as we leave from here, as we head into a new week, Lord, the desires that we have of the things in our life that are fleshly, Lord, that those would diminish. And that, Lord, the growing desire of our hearts would be to walk in your Spirit. And Lord, that our lives would be fruitful to those around us because of your Spirit's work in us and through us. And Lord, that each day, Lord, we would look at you and look to you, remembering your kindness towards us, because you are a good and kind God. We pray these things in your name. Amen.